here, it's both of the new Odens Eye palettes that are in collaboration with Angeschka or Angeschka. This is the Helaween Collection. This is basically an extended version of the Helaween that they did last year, which is sadly discontinued. But let's dig into these. First of all, before we start the video, we have 3 parts. The intro, then we have 2 tutorials, and in the last part, I'm going to give you my final thoughts, and we do a big swatch comparison. Like, I have still all the palettes laid out here. But before we head into the tutorial, I just want to tell you how disgusting people's behavior is. When I saw that they do have a collab going on and 2 new palettes are coming, I was like, fuck me, I want to know what it is. I don't even care who it is, I just want to know what it is because I like Odens Eye as a brand a lot. And then they revealed that it is like a Helaween collection called the Helaween, which makes totally sense. And it's again with Angeschka. The comments underneath the Odens Eye post were so brutally disgusting that I literally had to close Instagram. People were like, why do you collab with her? She's not even into Halloween. She doesn't know what Halloween is. She's not an American. Like, what fucking slurs are you? People were like, you should have collabed with Betty Jean. You know what? I don't think that Odens Eye will ever collab with Betty Jean because her collab palette was bullshit. I think for Odens Eye it makes totally sense to collab with Angeschka again because her Hela palette was a big sellout and these two be too. I don't think that they will sell out as fast as, for example, the Christmas palettes, but they are very, very popular. So let's head into them. First of all, the artwork, fantastic. Then we have the Little Ghost palette, which is the cool tone blue vibe that has a little bit of a reddish and orange going on. And then we have the Trick or Treat palette with the same artwork but in different colors. And this is warm toned. By the way, I don't think both of these, they do glow in the dark, which is super duper cool. I will not swatch them in this video. I will do separate swatches as like shorts, so keep an eye out for that if you're interested in swatches. But again, I do have swatch comparisons. Circle back to that thing about the comments. Personally, I don't care who anybody's from. I don't fucking care if you're a fan of Halloween or not. If a brand would come to me and say, do a Halloween palette, I would say like, oh, fuck yeah. I have a great inspiration for Halloween, even though we do not celebrate Halloween here in Germany. I was a little bit shocked on how much people came at this collection and how they whined and how fucking insulting they were. I can criticize Angeschka too, and if you saw my last Get Ready With Me, where I answered some of questions and assumptions and shit, one of the creators I talked about was Angeschka, and there are some points that just bother me with her, but still, I think she's a fucking great makeup artist. I love her style, and I love her idea, and I love the way she puts together color. This is her biggest freaking talent, putting colors together. But now I would say let's head into the tutorial portion and then we will talk about the rest later on. Let's go on full beat. I'm starting the look with Candy Apple and I apply this on the outer third and also in the crease. You might know that I am fucking obsessed with red eyeshadow still, like the love has not ended yet. I'm going into Jack-o'-lantern. And I blend this in the crease and into the Candy Apple shade, like very simple actually. I need some darkness on the outer corners, so I'm tapping into Vampire Fangs. And I just use this on this most outer V part, just to deepen that up. So tapping into Wicked, and I blend this just on this inner crease part to lighten that up a bit. It does not change a lot, but it does change the slightest bit of this whole appearance. Just a tiny bit. Actually, I just wanted to try the white because I never used the whites in the eye palettes, but a lot of people are like, oh, I need a white in my palette, like what for? But I know what for, but I never use it, so I have to force myself to do it. Now tapping into this beautiful Trick or Treat shade, and I tap this on the outer part, like in the same area as the red. I decided I want to take the red like over the center and just leave out the most inner part bare for a second shimmer shade. I'm now going into Full Moon, and Full Moon is going on the like bare part of the lid, and I'm blending that a bit over the red shade. I feel like they changed the formulation a bit. Usually the Odens Eye shimmers are more on the soft side. They're like not soft as Gloss Gods or soft as the dried metal formulation from Adept Cosmetics. More like when you touch them, you can see how the pigments and the flakes kind of break apart and stick to the brush. But this time they're either harder pressed or formulated different. So for the lower lash line, I'm using now the About Face liner in the shade Call Me Crazy, which is this like greenish, teal, whatever liner. I just want to have a nice contrast since I want to use some of the green shades now on the lower lash line. I'm now going into Cauldron. I think I pronounced it right? Cauldron? I don't even know what that is, and I'm too lazy to Google now. I use this directly in the lower lash line, like on the border between the liner and the real, like the skin. I mean, you know what I mean. I'm just very bad at explaining. Ugh, my eye's watering as fuck because I had a lash in my eye. I'm now tapping into Poison, and that could either be like the greatest idea I've ever had or ruin the whole fucking look. I'm not sure what's happening, but I use this now also on the lower lash line and I blend it out. Okay, I think it was the greatest idea I've ever had. I'm now tapping into Magic Potion and I use this as inner corner highlight. A little bit on the lower lash line, and I think you can all say it with me, drag it a bit into the crease. I just can't stop doing it that way. Okay, so this is now our favorite first look with the Trick or Treat palette. Now let's head into the second look with the Little Ghost palette. So I'm heading right into Haunted House, which is this beautiful royal blue. And I tap this on the outer part and into the crease. Very sloppy. You, by the way, know me, how I work. I'm now going into the Little Ghost palette, which, by the way, has super cute little bats imprinted. Love that. It's like the small things that make me happy. And I apply this in the crease and blend this on top of the blue in the crease. As per usual, this look will come together when we're done. I'm now going into Licorice, which is this brown, but it does have a purple undertone. Like, it appears very brown, but it's actually, I would say it's more like an aubergine or eggplant, depending where I live. But it's the same. But I use this on the most outer V area for even more like depth. It's sometimes just a small difference, but that small difference changes like the whole vibe of this look. By the way, I was super confused by the way they write licorice here, which is L-I-C-O-R-I-C-E, because I thought it's L-I-Q-U, you know, not the first C. But then I Googled it and apparently there's like 2 ways to write this, which, why are you doing this to me? This is so confusing. I'm now going into Ghoulish and I apply this on the inner like corner part, blending that into the purple. Now going into Ominous, and I use this and tap this on the outer lid part, basically on top of the darkest shades that we have. And I bring that over the center, but I keep the like inner third bare. I'm now going into Boo. This is one of those like iridescent fairy shades. I love this description. And I use this and fill in the rest of the lid. Tapping this on top of the purple and bringing this a bit more towards the center. So the gradient is a bit like softer, not so harsh. Okay, so for the lower lash line, I'm going into Licorice again. And I do rub this basically along the roots of the lower lashes. I'm now going into Broomstick, which is a brown. Or let's say it's a very warm, reddish, terracotta-y brown. And I use this to smudge it out a bit. Like that. So for the inner corner halo, let's try something different. I'm definitely going into Banana Taffy. By the way, what is Banana Taffy? Can you tell me, please? This is a very intense shade. And I just apply this on the inner corner. And I could totally leave it like that, but if you know me by now, you know I don't like matte inner corners that much. So I'm going into Cobweb and I apply this on top of the Taffy shade. Oh yes, this is nice. This has a slight sheen to it, but is very, very transparent, so it does not interrupt the color as much. Okay, so this is now the finished look with the Little Ghost palette. When I saw these color stories the very first time, I was like, fuck yeah, I will buy them both, but I will probably like Little Ghost more than the Trick or Treat palette because I don't know what it is. Even though I am into reds currently, I'm also into like blues and purples. And in general, I think I'm kind of over this. This is This is kind of Halloweenish, yes, because of the oranges, the poison green, and the intense color, because Halloween is fall at the same time, kind of, because they're like in the same season, and pumpkins are orange, like leaves are orange. Do you know what I mean? The connection between fall and Halloween to me makes completely sense. Therefore, I personally, I'm kind of over warm fall palettes, even though I like to wear them from time to time. I'm just leaning more towards the cool palettes, the winter palettes, even though nobody's really doing winter, except for MAC. They did a winter one, but we will talk about the MAC palette in another video. And I have to admit, I cannot really say if I like this look more or the other that I did, because I like them both actually equally. They give up completely different vibes in my opinion. They're very versatile, and I have to admit that each palette, no matter if it's the little ghost one or the Trick or Treat, they're both balanced out, because with Trick or Treat, yes, you mainly probably look at this warm oranges of the reds, but you also have this very cool toned dark olive shade, cool toned darker mauves, like what is this color like? This is not mauve, but I don't have a German word. It's like a light aubergine. But you also have with Goblin a very, very cool toned brown inside the palette. The Magic Potion is very cool toned. Even Crypt Keeper is more of a cool toned greenish vibe going on. While in the blue palette, that is like nature-wise very cool toned, because blues are cool. You have with this row of warms kind of a very, very balanced out color story. What I did not try are the lip products from the collection, because I don't like the way they look. These are way too warm for me, so I do have them here, but I am giving them away over on Instagram, and I think when you see this video, the giveaway has already ended. So make sure to follow me on Instagram, because I do giveaways. Well, I haven't done a giveaway in like 1.5 years, but I try to do, and I try to give back a bit. So now that we have done the looks, let's head into the last part of this video, and that is comparison. Because, so I have sitting here 10 other Odens Eye palettes, including the full collection of the multi-chromes, all the 12 shades. With these, we have 12 different Odens Eye palettes, and I think what people are very interested in is how do these palettes compare to previous releases. So let's talk about this now. Let's do the most obvious side by side. This is the 2022 Christmas palette. I think this is Merry Christmas? Yes, this is the Merry Christmas one. And this is the Trick or Treat palette. They have a very, very similar vibe going on. I fully agree on that. The main reason for these similar vibes, in my opinion, is these two shades, which are Candy Apple and Vampire Fangs. They do give off a very similar vibe of this red shade, which is poinsettia. It's kind of a Swedish dish, and I don't know how to pronounce it correct, and hot cocoa. These are very similar. Then we have Happy Ending, which is a black that is similar to Goblin, which is this cool tone brown. Full Moon and Alright. Mommy's Curse and Little Star. The vibe is similar. If you didn't get the Christmas palettes last year, you might find a lot of joy with the Trick or Treat palette. I give them that. I think the vibe, again, similar. The tones of green are a bit different. They're like more neonish, more intense than here in the Merry Christmas one. But I don't think they're like that different. You know what I mean? Let's compare it with the other Christmas palette. This is the Christmas Eve one. Oh my god, this is so hard to hold up, do you know that? Compared to the Trick or Treat on the bottom. I think these have nothing in common. They do kind of give off the same similar vibe. Yes, because of the blues, like you could hold up any blue palette next to the Trick or Treat and get a very similar vibe. But I don't think that they are similar enough that I would say, yeah, this is a good dupe. But do you know what vibe I really get from the Trick or Treat palette? Soleil Monet 2. Come on, this is very, very similar. The major differences are basically in the brights, because you have this yellow banana taffy in the Trick or Treat one, while you have as bright shade kind of the warm light in the Soleil Monet 2. But in general, the vibe, come on, this is the same. All the other palettes, so I do have the Jewels collection, the Stone and Rock and the Jewels and Gem. I do have the Planet Spirit and the Sea Talk from the influencer collab they did earlier this year. And besides the one that I showed you, I also have the new reformulated Norns palette. Besides those that I showed you, like the two Christmas palettes and the Solar Mono 2, I think all the other palettes do not have a vibe that is similar enough to say, okay, this could be a potential dupe. So let's now dig in deeper and look at different shades. I do have all of these palettes laid out in front of me, and I will just start swatching shades that do look very similar. By the way, if you're interested in an older version of this, I do have a post on my Instagram account where I side by side swatch different shades from different palettes to see how similar they are. I want to give up a little disclaimer before we start into this like swatch side-by-side comparison. I want to tell you that I do this portion of video in a point of view of somebody who has a big collection. The point of view of a collector. I see the comments on Odens Eye. I see it. I see the critique of, yeah, this is like the same color story. You are recycling your shades. And I say that too. They are private labeled, they do recycle their shades, it is what it is. But please keep in mind, you as maybe a part of the beauty community have a different angle, a different point of view on this whole release situation than somebody who is maybe just a makeup consumer, who is just having, I don't know, maximum to 10 eyeshadow palettes, and not all of them are from the same brand. They're probably like from drugstore to indie brand, maybe one high-end palette, maybe a Natasha Denona somewhere mixed in, or even a Pat McGrath because they got this as a Christmas gift or whatever. Not everybody in this world is part of the community. Not everybody in this world does collect eyeshadow palettes as you and I maybe do. So we have a completely different view on this. That's why when I say Odens Eye is recycling shades all over and over and over again, this does not have to be something negative. A lot of people missed out on the Christmas collection. A lot of people are whiny little bitches on every Odens Eye pass. Bring me the Christmas collection. It was limited. Get over it. Be thankful for the fact that they brought out these motherfucking two gorgeous palettes. I just want to hold them up again because they are pretty. And do you know what? I'm 100% sure that for this year's Christmas palette, Odens Eye is bringing some new bangers. And you will love them probably even more than last year's. So me telling you that they recycle shades is not negative. It just means that from a collector's perspective, I have a lot of repetitive shades. But if I would have the like space here and I would lay out every single palette that I own, out of the 2000 eyeshadow pans that I have here in different palettes, probably 50% look the same. So don't take this as like full-on critique. This is just an informative portion of the video for maybe one of you who's just a consumer, not a collector, who's not knee deep or like neck deep into the beauty community and knows everything about every brand, like some of us, like me, who are like very, very interested in that topic. So now let's head into the comparisons. So I start off with the Trick or Treat palette, and what I basically do is I take the palette, hold it next to other palettes, and then I see what shades do look similar. And for that part of the video, I need my glasses, otherwise I won't see everything. So the first comparison I have here on top is the shade Howl from the Trick or Treat palette. And underneath we have Wolf from the Hela palette, from the original one from last year. I thought they might look very similar in the pan, but actually the undertone is very different. It's basically the same shade, but with different undertones. So next up we have Jack-O-Lantern from Trick or Treat, and underneath is Solar from the Solar Mono 2. Again, in the pan they do have a very similar vibe, but actually they are different to me. Like Solar has a very brownish red undertone, while Jack-O-Lantern is like a true orange. How the fuck do people hold their arm like that and giving it a good view? I have no idea. I just switched to this view because it's easier. So next up we have Candy Apple from Trick or Treat and the shade Poinsettia from the Merry Christmas. Again, it's both a red, but this one is a bit darker. If you don't have the Merry Christmas one, actually you could get the same vibe when you take like candy apple and add some black to it. It will end up looking very similar. So this next comparison is quite interesting. We have Cauldron on the top. This is again from the Trick or Treat palette. This one is the shade Sage from Flora's Story. And this one is the shade Dreamland from the Stone and Rock palette. I think the undertone between this one and these two is different, but they give off a very, very similar vibe, and these two are practically dupes. Next up we have the shade Symmetry from Trick or Treat. This one is Elation from the Jewels and Jam palette, Mist from the New Norns, and Heaven also from Jewels and Jam. I think the most similar one are these two, but the other look completely different. Okay, so I already prepared some shimmers. Let's start over here. These two yellows underneath. The first one is the shade Full Moon from Trick or Treat, and this one is Maya from the Multichromes. They are similar but very different at the same time because they do have a very similar finish, but this one is clearly more yellow while this one is orangey leaning. Next to it we have the shade Deadly from the Trick or Treat, and underneath we have Sunken Treasure from the Sea Talk palette. Similar vibe, but still no dupes. Same as on this side, because this is the Trick or Treat shade from Trick or Treat, and underneath we have the shade Eternal from Solomon 2. To be honest, I think Eternal and this shade look much closer than these two. So let's head onto this row. This on top is the shade Crypt Keeper from the Trick or Treat palette. And when I saw this, I thought, okay, I have at least 3 shades that are the same, but actually all of them are different. So this is Green Chameleon from the New Norns palette. This is Misty from Flora's Story. And this is Passion from Stone and Rock. All of them are nice greens, but all of them are very similar. Again, like these two greens, this is Witch's Brew from Trick or Treat. Underneath we have High Spirit from Stone and Rock. And now for these last 3, yes, the best angle I can achieve. This is Magic Potion from the Trick or Treat, and I thought it looked very similar to some other shades, but it actually doesn't. Underneath we have the shade Lola from the Multichromes and Frenzy from Stone and Rock. There are more shades in the Trick or Treat, but I think these are the ones that are the most similar or very similar in the vibe, but actually none of these are real dupes. I'm actually quite impressed. Now let's go into the Little Ghost palette. On top we have the shade Licorice, and underneath is Suit from Hela. I thought they looked similar in the pan, but they actually are very, very different. So this is Haunted House, and underneath we have Nebula from the Solomon 2 and Christmas Eve from the Christmas Eve palette. Beautiful blues, but all of them quite different. So here we have the shade Ghoulish next to Soft Cloud from Solomon 2 and Nightfall from Christmas Eve. Yeah. I mean, these two are quite different, but Soft Cloud is much brighter, like more of a white base to it. Then we have Candy Corn, Solar from Solomon 2, and Gingerbread from the Merry Christmas palette. These are similar. This one is much brighter than this one, but this is more brown toned than orange, but similar vibe, but again, not dupes. Here we have Broomstick, Hot Cocoa from Merry Christmas, and Driftwood from Sea Talk palette. These could be dupes. This is much like more packing, but the undertone and general appearance is very, very similar. Okay, I think this is now my biggest hit. This is the shade Zombie. Beautiful. Next to it, we have the shade Wonderful from Merry Christmas. Like these are, I don't know if you can tell, but these are the same. These are literally the same. And then I thought, let's compare it to the shade Gorgeous, which is one of the most beautiful duochromes I've ever seen in my life. And then I also thought, let's compare this to the shade Angela from the Multichromes. And these two are not the same as these two, but these two are the same. So all the people who love the Christmas Eve palette just for the shade Gorgeous, here you have your dupe. It's Angela from the Odens Eye Multichromes. It is the fucking same shade. I'm flabbergasted. Now we have the shade Boo. Underneath we have Judy from the Multichromes and Meteor from the Solomon 2. These are not similar at all. Like these two have a similar vibe, but I think Boo is much more shiny. And last but not least, we have the shade Creepy from the Trick or Treat. This one is Self from the New Norns. Then we have Deep Space from Solomon 2. And this last one is Sea Spray from the Sea Talk palette. Similar, but definitely not dupes. To be honest, I'm fairly impressed by the fact that I did not find a lot of dupes. I actually expected to have much more similarity in all of those shades, and I am very proud of the fact that I wasn't able to dupe a lot of this. This does now mean that you need this Odens Eye collection. If you have the other palettes, definitely not, because you see, it's the vibe that is similar. It's not the exact tone of color, no, but the vibe is very similar. Out of the stuff that Odens Eye released this year, the Helaween is definitely my favorite. I was not a fan of the influencer collab they did in the beginning of the year. Beside the Sea Talk palette, the other two are mediocre. I even decluttered one of them. The Stone and Rock collection was good, but I liked the Jewels and Jam palette much more than the other one. And the Norns was just a big letdown for me because the color story does not match. I don't know, it's like too random for me. Quality-wise, I think they changed something because the mattes blend even better than before. And the shimmer shades are also very different. I mean, they're still typical indie. That means they're like a little bit flaky, very intense, can go on a bit too thick and crease very fast. Like, we know how indie brands do work. But something is different. They're a bit smoother, which I like. Depending on what side of the beauty community you are, if you're just a quiet consumer with 2 or 3 palettes, I would say do this. Buy these because they might give a nice twist to your collection. If you're a collector and you want to do mindful purchases and you get a bit of FOMO because this is limited edition, I'd say don't do it. You probably have the same vibe. Maybe not the same shades, but a very similar vibe going on that you can recreate any look that you see with these palettes. But tell me, did you buy these? Have you tried them? Do you like them? Which look was your favorite? The first one or the second one? Which palette do you like more? Let me know down below. Don't forget to check out the info box and shit, and I will see you in the next one.